The following program has been funded in part through grants from the Exchange Bank Corporation, Incorporated, the Saunders Foundation, the David Falk Foundation, Tampa Electric Company, Port Sutton, Incorporated, the Tampa Tribune and the Tampa Times, the First National Bank of Florida, Tampa Armature Works, Incorporated, and Poe and Associates, Incorporated.
It's time, folks.
This is broadcasting station WDAE, broadcasting from the Davis Islands Country Club on beautiful Davis Islands in Tampa, Florida, presenting the lilting music of Isham Jones and his orchestra.
Back in the 1920s, all over Tampa, this is what everybody would have been doing. Radio had come to town.
Tony and I are joined in this episode by Mitchell Emmanuel, prominent local attorney and history buff.
Back in 1922, WDAE was Tampa and Florida's first and only radio station. It all started back in the newsrooms of the old Tampa Daily Times, where they read the headlines just as they came off the presses. Mr. David E. Smiley was the far-sighted owner and the publisher of the Times at that time.
The 1920s were a time of incredible growth in Tampa. Suburb Beautiful was the first land development. It was located on the Bayshore. Famous sports figures came here to promote other developments. Jack Dempsey fought an exhibition match at Forest Hills. Our old swimming hole out at Sulphur Springs expanded with a new shopping arcade. The sales office at Tampa Terrace was shaped like a Tampa orange.
And owning land in Florida was the thing to do, and there were lots of people who came from all over the United States to do it. Besides the subdivisions that Tony mentioned, there were also the famous subdivisions of Sunset Park and Beach Park and New Suburb Beautiful, and it was things were really looking up during the 1924-1925 period. Developers were quick to find that they could sell almost anything, and a lot of them did. Some of the land was underwater. But the people came down and they bought it, and they'd hold the land a little while, and then they'd sell it and buy new land. And people built paper profits on paper profits. The developers themselves sparked tremendous growth in Tampa's economic picture at that time, and the banks became very competitive. The Citizens Bank building, which had been built in about 1913, was originally a 10-story building. In 1925, when the First National Bank announced plans for its new building, it was to be 12 stories. So the citizens got busy, they built 3 more stories. The First National added 1, and it was a battle of the skyscrapers.
But certainly the most extravagant development of that time was Davis Islands.
Davis Islands was a first-class development all the way down the line. D.P. Davis was a very unusual man. He had been operating in the real estate area down in Miami, and he'd seen Bay Bottom land bought and filled in. So he came to Tampa and determined to buy Depot Key, which was a little island just off the mouth of the Hillsborough River, which was awash a good deal of the time. So he began to fill it in, brought in big steam dredges, and they pumped Bay Bottom up, and pretty soon it was upland instead of lowland, and they bulkheaded it with seawalls and good seawalls. The seawalls that were built in 1925 are all still standing today and almost in as good a shape as they were at that time. Davis was a public-spirited man, and he dedicated land at the north end of Davis Islands for the Tampa General Hospital, our biggest hospital in Tampa, and Marjorie Park, which was named after Mrs. Davis, where tennis courts were established, some of the finest clay courts in the country, and the Dixie tennis tournament was held for many years. The Marjorie Park Yacht Basin, one of the best protected yacht harbors in the United States, and of course the seaplane base at the south end of the island, which he pumped in a little hook of land where the Davis Island Yacht Club is now, and that's where the seaplanes could land in a protected area. He was one heck of a promoter too, because he staged hydroplane races. He built a beautiful country club and a golf course, and the country club had a rollback roof, and I remember attending dances there on a beautiful evening when they'd roll the roof back and the stars would shine. But his promotion activities were something else. He hired, for example, a marathon swimmer, a very famous marathon swimmer, to swim around the island on a Sunday afternoon, and just to keep her company and beat off any fish that might bother her, he asked Saul Fleischman, now known as Salty Saul Fleischman, to accompany her, and also Roy Jenkins. Roy is very well known in swimming circles in Tampa, and he is memorialized by the Davis Island Pool, which is now named after him. It was tragic in a way, the way Davis ended, because he moved on to St. Augustine, where he was less than successful. Then he took a steamship across the Atlantic on a holiday and disappeared one night from the ship. There was a lot of gossip about it, but in any event, the insurance company paid off.
But whatever really happened to Davis, he will always be remembered as a flamboyant character. Here he is, the one wearing knickers, with Griffith, one of the developers of Temple Terrace, and some bathing beauties of the time.
There's never been a time like that freewheeling, free-spending decade. Fortunes were made in a day and spent that night. Everybody knew you could make another tomorrow. Look out, America. Here comes Tampa, stepping out.
Folks, you've heard just lots about Dixie. We know you think she's grand, but Florida is Dixie's sunny land.
Sunny land.
There's a city they call Tampa, mid-tropic splendor rare,
With industry,
a port to see.
no other can compare.
Down in Tampa, folks will greet you with a smile, where opportunity is friendly as can be. Down in Tampa, you will learn to step with glee. She's got a rep, she's full of pep. Folks down in Tampa got to step. Down in Tampa, you must lamp her from the bay. Her boulevards are gay and bright lights all the way. A buzzing like a busy bee are Tampa's wheels of industry. Stepping off, there's a doubt about Tampa. Tampa was a little hick town in 1898.
A wee little place setting a pace, not dreaming of her fate.
And then Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders came, the war with Spain was won, and Uncle Sam was tickled to death to know that it was done.
History tells the story now of Teddy's immortal fame. Our nation hears with pride and joy the glory of his name.
And Tampa now has grown to be the largest town in the state. There's no stopping her stride, she's sure stepped out wide since 1898. Down in Tampa, folks will greet you with a smile, where opportunity is friendly as can be. A buzzing like a busy bee are Tampa's wheels of industry. Stepping out, there's no doubt about Tampa.
In the 1920s, Tampa was flying high in more ways than one. Novelist Jules Verne may have started it all when he made Tampa the launching site of his fictional rocket to the moon. But whatever, Tampa became an aviation pioneer.
Joyce, Tampa had been pioneering in aviation for some time. You'll recall that Tony Janus in his famous Benoit flying boat took off from St. Pete, flew over to Tampa, and inaugurated the first regularly scheduled airline in the whole world. And that was in 1914.
And by the 1920s, we had seaplanes landing at the basin on the southern end of Davis Islands, as well as regular airmail service to Cuba.
All the passengers weren't coming by plane or by train, though, Tony. They were coming by ship. And there were other things coming by ship. You'll recall that was during the time of Prohibition. The 18th Amendment had been passed in the early, right after World War I. And Florida, with its large, unprotected coastline, was an easy mark for the rum runners who would bring big ships up off the coast, and speedboats would go out and meet them. The 20s weren't known as the Roaring 20s for nothing, because they really roared in Tampa and in Florida, and they were fueled by a lot of this illegal spirits. The spirits were high, and there were a lot of people in good spirits and a lot of spirits in good people, too. Because but anyway, it was a wild time, an extravagant time, and the 20s are something those of us who lived through them will never forget.
Henry Ford's Model T opened up a profitable new business, tourism. Of course, the wealthy had been coming for years to the Tampa Bay Hotel, but now, for the first time, the average American family could drive to Florida.
Joyce, they were called tin can tourists. They came in their flivvers, loaded down with foodstuffs, canned goods, tents, and bedding, and they came down those old-fashioned brick narrow roads of Florida, and they had a terrible time avoiding the old scrub cattle in the wilderness. But they finally would get to the little towns where they had parks where they could spend the night and put up their tents. And of course, Tampa had its headquarters for them, and it was located in Palmetto Beach, and which we know today as DeSoto Park.
And with those automobiles, Tony, came the need for bridges, because Tampa Bay is a big body of water, and when you add in the rivers and the bayous and everything, you had to go a long way to skirt them. I recall that you used to have to drive to St. Petersburg by way of Oldsmar, Safety Harbor, Clearwater, and then on down to St. Pete, and you killed the better part of half a day doing it.
Very true.
So when George Gandy, in the early 20s, had his vision of a large span of concrete and sand across Tampa Bay, which at that time, I believe, was one of the largest, if not the largest, longest bridge in the country. He floated some bonds, and then in 1924, I remember it well because my dad loaded us up in the old Pierce Arrow, and we went down to be among those who crossed the bridge on the first day. But the St. Petersburg Times memorialized it in its headlines. It was November the 20th, 1924. Governor Carey Hardy was there to open the bridge, and it was a 25-cent toll, as I recall. But it was a great way to get across, and when the toll was lifted during World War II, it made it an even better way to get across.
That's right. Mitch, there was another bridge that was never built. This version of the Platte Street Bridge, just imagine that in downtown Tampa.
I sort of hate to, wouldn't you?
Tampa's always been a sporting town, but in the 20s, a variety of sports became accessible to everybody. Developments were built around sports complexes, just as they are today. Perhaps because of that, over the years, some of America's greatest sports personalities have either come from Tampa or come to Tampa to live.
That was my best overhead. Hello, I'm Judy Alvarez. Big-time tennis came to Tampa in 1925 when Mr. Davis built Davis Island. He wanted to build a sports wonderland, and he constructed Davis Island Tennis Club, where he invited many, many stars from all over the world to play in the first Dixie International Tennis Tournament here in Tampa. I can remember back when I was growing up, famous name players such as Maria Bueno from Brazil, Roy Emerson from Australia, Rod Laver from Australia, Etta Budding from Germany, and Judy Alvarez from Tampa. At the age of 9, I started playing tennis at Cascaden Park in Ybor City. And then I made my home at Davis Island Tennis Club, where I played for almost all of my professional years. At the age of 16, I played my first Dixie International Tennis Tournament. At that same year, Maureen Conley, known as Little Mo, she was a 3 times Wimbledon champion, was touring Florida to play with all the up-and-coming juniors that were nationally ranked. And I was invited to play doubles with her at Davis Island Tennis Club. We played, and she invited me to practice and train with her for a few months at her home in Phoenix, Arizona, where I went, and we practiced, and when I came back, I won most of my biggest titles and my highest rankings. The same year that I graduated from high school, when most of my friends were packing to go to Beach Week, I was packing my bags to go to England to play in Wimbledon, where I was invited to play because I was in the top 10 in my nation. What I can remember about Wimbledon was the highlights is not only did I have to worry about playing against my opponent in the center court at Wimbledon, but was to learn how to curtsy because the Duchess of Kent was going to be present in the royal box that day. So that was quite exciting for me. My biggest wins that year, and that was my best year of my whole career, I beat Virginia Wade from England that year at Wimbledon, and then I came back to the United States, and during my tour of the United States that year, I beat Billie Jean King that year in the East. Now, Billie Jean King and myself are playing in the 35 and over, and we both try to stay in shape. She plays on the tour, and I practice here at my own club tennis. Harold, you want to hit some more? One more.
Another woman athlete was Babe Didrikson Zaharias, considered by most to have been the greatest sportswoman of all time. Though born in Texas, she spent the last years of her life in Tampa with her husband, professional wrestler George Zaharias. In Babe's autobiography, she describes what she felt when she first saw George Zaharias out on the links. She said he was not only kind and gentle, but very handsome as well. And this is a picture, George, of the way you must have looked just about that time.
Yeah, I brought this along, honey, so you could see what I looked like about 40 years ago. Well, she always wanted to live in Florida, and at this time she was a pro at a big swanky club in Chicago called Skycrest. They had two golf courses there, and she was the head pro, and that was the first time any woman ever had a job like that, you know, that would be in charge of a big golf course. A fellow named Reynolds that was leasing this golf course wrote me a letter and says it could be bought if I brought the money. So I came on down here and had the money in my pocket, and I bought it that minute.
When did you tell Babe about it?
Well, I called her back in about 15, 20 minutes and told her, I says, you own the golf course now.
What'd she say?
Whoopee.
I bet that sounded great on long distance.
Oh, yeah.
Did she teach while she was here?
Oh, yeah, she teached, and she played with the girls, and she Yeah, she was a professional. She gave lessons and she did everything. She sold and stuff in the shop and everything. She did everything a professional would do.
Well, your first house that was located about where that ligustrum tree is now.
Well, no, that came with a golf course. That was just a little shack. It only had one room in it and a nice big room in it. They use it for a caddy shop.
You did eventually build another home, though, didn't you?
Well, it's just right straight over that building over there on the side of the lake. Beautiful house, and she loved it. That's all she ever wanted in her life, was just a house of her own. She liked pretty things. She liked little lace things, and she liked wood stuff, you know, in the house. You know, everything was hidden in, you know, doors with louvers and all that kind of stuff.
What was the golfing scene like in Tampa when you had this club? Were there a lot of people who liked to play?
Well, this club, I'll tell you what, there was two people that played here the day we got it. And when we saw we had 500 members here, we built a golf course into a real place to go to and come to and play golf. We had the greatest bunch of members you ever seen here, and they all had a good time. There was always... We had a great big building with a great big ballroom and everything else. We had dances and New Year parties, and the little girls that their fathers and mothers were members here, got married in here, had their baptisms here. They had everything in this building. It was right along in here. It was a building in Spanish style, built. It had walls 2 feet thick, and it was 3 stories high. We had a couple of rooms in it for a while, you know, until we found out it was too cold. Well, Joyce, I want to tell you something about this territory out here. When I come here, see all them houses over there and all around in here, there never was one here. All it was is a jungle. I cleared it all off. We turned everybody into golf here. We had people never held a golf stick and made golfers out of them. Now, Lopez was a star member here, and he used to beat everybody every day. He's a good golfer, too.
He still plays every afternoon,
he
doesn't he?
I heard you had an interview with him the other day. I wish we'd have been together. He and I are the same age.
That's right. You were born on the same day.
Yeah, same year.
The first team that I played on that had a uniform was a club by the name of the Almendares. The manager was a fellow by the name of Molina that was a barber in Ebo City. And we played with a club in West Tampa that was also kind of a barber also that had a team over there with kids by the name of El Yara. And his wife made his uniforms, and Molina's wife made our uniforms for us. We had a lot of fun, and I thought it was a great experience for us. From there, I went to play for the Sacred Heart, which is now the Jesuit high school. It happened that the coach at Sacred Heart played basketball with my brother when he was playing with the Knights of Columbus, and found out about, I don't know how he found out, but he found out that I was what he'd call a fair catcher, and asked me if I would go to school at Sacred Heart, and played for the Sacred Heart, which I did, and I thought it was also a great experience for me. After I left Sacred Heart, I played with the men in Ebo City. I was 15 years old and was playing with grown men, which I didn't think I was capable of doing. And I happened to have a good series during the playoffs, and there was a newspaper man there by the name of Montoto that used to write for La Traducción, a Spanish newspaper in Ebo City. And he asked me if I would go out and try out with the Tampa Smokers, which is the Tampa Tarpons now. And I told him that I didn't think I was good enough to play with the Smokers, but I'd be glad to go out and try out. So I went out with this note to see a fellow by the name of Doc Nance, who I still admired very much. He happened to be the groundskeeper here at Al Lopez Field while I was here with the White Sox training here. And he helped me an awful lot in baseball. And actually, I stayed with the club. He offered me a contract for $150 a month, which I thought was a lot of money and great to get for playing baseball. While I was playing with the Smokers, we played at Plant Field, which is the old fairgrounds. And this is where Babe Ruth hit his longest home run in baseball. It's in the Guinness record book right now that it's supposed to be the longest home run ever hit. At that time, the Florida State League was Class D, and I played 2 years, and in my second year, I was drafted by the Jacksonville Club, which was in the Southeastern League in Class B. While I was at Jacksonville, we happened to have a pitcher by the name of Ben Cantwell who was having a great year, and we had 6 or 8 scouts, major league scouts, every day that we played out there. And I was fortunate that the Brooklyn scout, a fellow by the name of Nat Brucker, took a liking to me, and he wrote back to his boss and told him that he liked the catcher better than he did the pitcher. And this boss wrote back and called him and told him that if he liked the catcher better, to go ahead and buy him. That's how I happened to go to the Brooklyn Ball Club. Well, I went to Brooklyn. My first year was in 1930 and played with Brooklyn for 6 years. Then I went to Boston, played 4 years, and I went to Pittsburgh for 7 years and went to Cleveland for 1 year for 18 years of playing, which is an enjoyable career, very much. I enjoyed playing very much. After I left Cleveland, I went to manage at Indianapolis for 3 years and came back to the majors again with Cleveland as a manager with the Cleveland Club, and managed 6 years for Cleveland, and also managed the Chicago White Sox for 9 years. In 1978, I was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But the greatest thrill of all was when they named this ballpark Al Lopez Field. I'll always be grateful to Mayor Hickson and the people of Tampa for what they did for me and for baseball.
On October 26, 1929, this was what the Tampa paper looked like. 3 days later, at the New York Stock Exchange, the beautiful bubble burst. Florida had already been first across the finish line. The land boom had crashed here earlier. There would be dark years ahead.
The preceding program was funded in part by grants from the Exchange Bank Corporation Incorporated, the Saunders Foundation, the David Falk Foundation, Tampa Electric Company, Port Sutton Incorporated, the Tampa Tribune and the Tampa Times, the First National Bank of Florida, Tampa Armature Works Incorporated, and Poe and Associates Incorporated.